Good morning to everybody. I am the Italian ambassador in Portugal, and I'm particularly pleased to present today this event, the webinar on digital and emerging technologies for decarbonization and energy transition. I am very particularly pleased to do it in partnership with COTEC Portugal, the main association in Portugal for business innovation and technological cooperation. It's the first time that we do it with COTEC Portugal. We have been hosting in this last 2 years many webinars, actually 20, since let's say the pandemic began. We had to move to digital initiative in order to enhance, to foster the possibility for our two economical system to find possible a common base in order to enjoy common project in different fields. And this is going to be the third one, which is going to be focused especially on digital and new and emerging technologies. The last webinars and this one as well is organized in cooperation with the ECE agency and the Italian Chamber of Commerce in Portugal. So welcome to everybody, and let's start this webinar. And on this, I would say, strategic subject on the contribution of the new emerging technologies to decarbonization and energy transition. I am firmly convinced that the close interaction of entrepreneurial system, our two, the Italian and Portuguese system, which Embassy has been promoting through several webinars on these various topics in the last 2 years I was referring to, can really stimulate the creation of business and investment opportunity that will benefit both countries. Actually, the COTEC will give in the next month a special contribution, as this year the dialogue between the two countries in the field of innovation will be further strengthened thanks to the annual COTEC Europe Summit, which will bring together the head of state of Portugal, Spain and Italy in this magnificent setting of Braga, the beginning of next May. The event, with the participation of the three head of state, will foster the debate on the positive contribution of the three countries on innovation policies in order to address the challenges of competitiveness, employment, and inclusive growth that Europe, companies, and all of us are facing. Well, the pandemic since 2020 has shown us that the cooperation and unity are essential for overcoming all the difficulty and emerge altogether strong and more resilient. And this is the reason why European Union has set a framework, a strategic framework for all the European countries, EU member states, to enable them to recover quickly, faster from the crisis, and align all the system, all the country system, more and more towards common goals that will keep the EU competitive and at the forefront of innovation and research at the global level. And in this framework, obviously, the twin transition, the green and the digital one, go together to ensure a sustainable future for the next generation European citizens. This is the reason why the program that came out from this awareness of the need of cooperation and solidarity is called after next generation European Union. Digital innovation are the greatest allies of sustainability. There cannot be sustainability, whether environmental, economical, social one, without digital technologies. The key element in determining the success of the twin transition of the European countries is going to be the pace at which they will be implemented. And in this Rise in Europe, which is a program that it will be very appraised in depth, very much by the third speaker of today's webinar, Cristina Gouveia, which is focused on the roadmap for the participation to the project in Rise in Europe, let's say, gives the broader transnational research and innovation program in the world, because has a budget of, that will be corrected there afterwards maybe by Cristina, of 95.5 billion euros. And the inclusion among the different components of the pillars provided for by the project is such as innovation, adaptation to climate changes and smart cities, shows the fact that they will have a strategic impact on our future. Urban areas will have an incredible responsibility in shaping our planet, because there are today more than 50% of the world population lives in cities. Cities are incubators where innovation thrives. And this is the reason of paramount importance that urban areas contribute to sustainable development. And in line of this, I would like to mention the fact that Italy has chosen the relationship between people and territories in the theme for candidature of Rome to host the Expo 2030, and precisely focusing on urban regeneration, inclusion and innovation. Nowadays, there is a great awareness of among companies and consumers that we are all compelled to adopt innovation that incorporate both digital technologies and focus on environmental sustainability. The fast-paced evolution of digital technologies open new perspectives for the development of innovative solutions, which often make a valuable contribution to business profitability. And at the same time, also consumers are increasingly paying attention to climate change and sustainability. And the recent research study shows that almost 40% of the Italian households have stopped buying certain products or services because of their negative impact on the environment or society. In this, obviously, the national recovery and resilience plans that have been set in all European countries, and now we are focusing here on the Italian and Portuguese one, provide for a strategic contribution to the reaching of the goals of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals for 2030, and the target of climate neutrality by 2050 set by the European Union. As well as all the reform that are part, a pillar of each of these recovery and resilience plans that are sustaining this possibility to reach the two transitions. And now focusing quickly on the Italian recovery and resilience plan. This one is designed to precisely to accelerate the twin transitions, and it includes digitalization and innovation, and dedicates a special mission to the green revolution and ecological transition, and obviously to education and research. The fund made available for this mission are very significant. We are talking about almost, for the Italian plan, 24 billion euros earmarked for digitalization, innovation, and competitiveness and productive system, of which 13.4 billion to promote the adoption of digital technologies by business through the tax credit scheme. So also almost 60 million euros will be invested in green revolution and ecological transition, with other components such as sustainable agriculture, circular economy, renewable energy, hydrogen, and energy efficiency, and rehabilitation of building and protection of land and water resources. To achieve the progressive decarbonization of all sectors, the plan includes investment and reform to increase the penetration of renewables and to decarbonize end user in all other sectors. Promoting innovation are also requiring eliminating the barrier that might create obstacle for it. And I am glad to underline the fact that in 2020, the government introduced a special simplified procedure for the issue of authorization for experimental activity relating to technological innovation and digitalization, in order to speed up all the procedure to get through these programs. I would like also to mention the fact that in economic terms, a report made by the European House Ambrosetti shows that between 2020 and 2030, digital will contribute to reducing CO2 emission up to 10% compared to 2019 level, with an impact equal to the incremental impact of renewable energy. The study also reveals that in the next 30 years, the digital sector will contribute to more than 50% of the decarbonization in Italy. So the use of integration of digital technologies is also, for example, to our special system that is made by a huge presence of small and medium-sized enterprises. On this is the 70% of the Italian SMEs have at least a basic level and very above the European Union average. I'm sure that it's going to be very interesting also for the Portuguese partner to look in depth into the possibilities that are given by all the Italian companies that are going to participate later on the B2B meetings in order to find the right way to develop and to foster common projects. Obviously, I'm not going to analyze in depth what is provided for by the national recovery plan of Portugal. I just would like to mention, because this is going to be made by my friend, the Secretary General of the COTEC Portugal, who is going to take the floor after me, Jorge Portugal. But let me just highlight the fact that when we look at the European statistics, Portugal shows that it ranks at the 16th place in the EU Digital Index, which is a great performance, and has been all in this last year scaling up all the position in the ladder since a few years in many other important performance tracks. For example, it is overall in the world ranks in the 34th position in digital competitiveness, which is it's also very important. And Portugal is even more competitive in information technologies, where it ranks 11th. And as far as number of science graduates, where it ranks 12th, well above actually Italy, which still lags behind at the 39th position. So Portugal has been a true pioneer both in the green and digital sector, because it has been investing a lot in this last decade and has been able to enable to benefit more than other European Union countries from the strategies put in place and the investment for a sustainable recovery. The Portuguese recovery and resilience plans, just to give a few data, reflects this approach and allocates more than 3 billion euros for climate transition, almost 3 billion euros also for digital one, and the same is true as far as for companies capitalization and innovation, out of total amount of 16.6 billion that is part of the national PNR, Portuguese PNRR. Well, just I would like to mention one thing more, that Portugal closed the last coal generation plant in Pego, and by doing this, became the 4th country in Europe to complete the coal phase out. So, because the Portuguese energy supplies 60% of the Portugal electricity consumption is becoming from renewable energy, and out of this 6% from wind, 27% by hydroelectric power, and 7% biomass, and 3.5% by photovoltaic. So that is a very advanced position compared to all other, including Italy. I really hope that all the examples and data offered in this quick introduction offers would have been able to offer an overview on this huge potential of cooperation between Italian and Portuguese companies to join their forces, and this is the objective of this gathering today, in order to ease the knowledge and the perspective to develop innovative digital solutions, contributing to the energy transition and to improving the life of all of us. So with pleasure, I leave the floor to my friend Jorge, and later on to Cristina Gouveia. before opening the roundtable with the participation, which is going to be moderated by Miguel Martins. Jorge, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Carlo Formosa. Carlo, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today, this morning, in this joint organized seminar, together with the support of the Embassy of Italy, Italian Chamber of Commerce, and COTEC. I would like also to praise the way that the efforts at the embassy have been developing despite the true difficult conditions we have been through these last 2 years in tightening the links between the Portuguese economy, and particularly the Portuguese companies and Italian companies. So this is one more effort regarding that path of being closer and being in a state of more intensive cooperation between Portuguese companies and Italian companies. So thank you so much for that, all that support, and also to praise and to thank the Italian Chamber of Commerce that was an exquisite partner in the organization of these events. I will be very brief in terms of what are the key messages for this morning, and as a way of giving it some background. And I will not referring the complex geopolitical situation that we are facing now in Europe and in world regarding energy. What I'm going to focus on is basically on what is the challenges that Europe as states, and in particular for the next decade, which is next decade means 2030, and which will affect, definitely will be a game changer for industries, companies, and consumers and citizens. So I will just draw this idea that the political ambition and the regulatory package that was presented by the European Commission to address the Green Deal is basically, from our perspective, the Fit for 55. It's basically package is basically a game changer. What we see is that if adopted in the current form, and it is the most ambitious and as well the most coherent greenhouse gases package reduction ever seen. So what we see is that this ambition addresses all sectors, and it's very consistent in terms of what is the objective of cutting 55 CHC by 2030. So this is, from our perspective, is what is ahead of us, and we have to deal very transparent and with a very clear vision that will be this level of ambition will require a step change in the level of action and the determination the member states and the companies and citizens, far greater than we have seen until now, and most of them immediately. We have only 8 years until 2030. In particular, in achieving the renewable energy system targets, in which, as Ambassador Carlo Formosa mentioned, it will be to move from 32 to 40%. For Portugal, for instance, the target will be 80% of energy, electric energy produced by renewables. So basically, it requires fast action and very determined, and basically it is ambition and make clear that these will require sacrifices by EU citizens in terms of personnel cost and industrial competitiveness. And I think we have to be very clear about this. For industry, the proposals, we have been talking, and as COTEC, we have been talking with our business associates, and all of them, they have been declaring, expressing major concerns and challenges. The ETS prices will continue to rise, and this is its foundation. It shows that it's working, and this will increase costs on industry that probably our competitors out of Europe largely do not bear. And we mentioned basically, for instance, the refusal of the continued refusal of the United States in implement a federal carbon tax, ETS. So it will be something that the European companies will have to bear, while other regions, the companies from other regions won't. So probably the carbon border adjustment mechanism may help. But the problem of export competitiveness will remain. So, and these will affect areas or elements like steel, cement, fertilizers, and will affect all the downstream industries. So we see that intensive industry subject will be as we are seeing now, international competition, and basically these will target and the renewable energy system targets will rise energy prices, will rise heat costs, and will rise transport costs. So that definitely no one can be mistaken about this. For citizens, of course, will be difficult to comply. Otherwise, that proposals of Fit for 55 will lead to increased costs for electricity, heating, and transport. So again, this is not suggesting the proposals are wrong. On the contrary, what we see is they are in line for achieving the -55 objective, and we don't see better or cheaper alternatives. They are very thin on the ground, so we don't see that they exist of all to achieve these objectives. But the point is that we have to promote a very clear discussion and debate between the companies and also citizens in terms of what are the kind of sacrifices we have and what kind of actions we have to promote in order to achieve these objectives. First, to answer two questions: are they actually realistic, and how much they will cost? And by the way, who will pay for those objectives? So a key message, and I will be finishing very quickly. It's the key message is that this, even with the best available technology, only with innovation focus, innovation approach, those targets and policies will be met. So we cannot do it, cannot target this, achieve these objectives without technology and without innovation. Also, it requires a lot of effort and work on the companies, investment on the companies, in order to achieve those roadmaps for reducing the carbon or carbon footprint reduction. It will require, as Ambassador Carlo Formosa mentioned, it requires much more cooperation among companies. Any company alone will be able to get the technology and innovation capabilities and know-how in order to address these challenges and to be competitive. Because what is really what will happen is that the totality of these measures it will cost and will be important in terms of the cost, and will challenge the cost and the competitiveness position of companies. So these matchmaking sessions, these sessions that we organize with the Italian Chamber of Commerce and the support with the Italian Embassy, are intended to provide this platform for this gathering platform to discuss these challenges and to discuss how the cooperation can be brought to life among Portuguese and Italian companies. So these are huge challenges, and I think that everyone have to be very clear about that. That's why we think that and COTEC is leading as well the way of we have to discuss what are the challenges ahead, what are the instruments and support we'll have to promote this roadmap, and what companies within their own strategies, what companies can do. And by the way, they have to. We can go very fast alone, but we can go much further if we go together. So thanks again to Ambassador Carlo Formosa. It's a pleasure always to be with you, and thank you so much for your support to Portugal and to tying the links between Portugal and in Italy, and the excellent cooperation with the Italian Chamber of Commerce. Oh, thank you so much for all the speakers. We'll have just right away, following me, Mrs. Cristina Gouveia, which is the head of the point of contact, national point of contact for the Horizon Europe, and we'll have a very interesting roundtable chaired by Miguel Martins from our business associate, partner of Grosvenor, House of Investments. Matteo Zanchi from ENERSEM, and Marco Ferraz from Galp, the Innovation Center. So thank you so much for our guests today. I will pass the floor. Thank you so much for being here and your attention. I will pass the floor to Mrs. Cristina Gouveia. Thank you so much.
For inviting me to be present in this session and have the possibility to talk about the Horizon Europe, which is a program that supports research and innovation at the European Union level. As the Italian ambassador mentioned in his introductory speech. I will share my screen just to show you some slides. My major point for my presentation it's to provide a short roadmap and some tips on how to be part of and participate in this program, the Horizon Europe program. And these events are very good. And I'm also very happy to be here because they are an opportunity for people to get to know each other and to understand what are the major points in terms of participation. And so I hope from these events there will be projects that will get at least some strength to keep going and participate and be successful in the future. So just as it was mentioned, this is considered the biggest fund in the Horizon Europe is considered to be the biggest fund in the worldwide that funds research and innovation activities. The problem with this, and to be able to participate in these type of programs, is to understand where and how can you find the opportunity that suits your needs. And for that, that's the focus of my presentation, is to make this easier. So when you when you hear something about Horizon Europe, you feel that it's not an hassle to participate. So, like most funds, the funds are organized according, because 95 billions of euros, it's too much money. So it's like you have to have some signs and some maps for you to get to know where the opportunities are. So most of the funds are organized according to the development stage of the technology or the research or the innovation. And so that's one of the things you need to be acquainted to, is this scaled technological readiness level, and understand if you're much more on the research side or on the market side in terms of bringing the knowledge and the innovation you produced back into society. So these organize most of the opportunities. Then you have also sectorial type of structure. So considering Horizon Europe, you have most of the opportunities. If you're somewhere in between, you're not doing the fundamental research and you're not already in the market, most of the opportunities you have are divided according to sectors. And if you look at the screen, they are in this middle part of the graphic, which is mentioned as Pillar 2. And there are some opportunities specific for digital industry and space, and also climate, energy, and mobility, which are the topic and the issues that we will be discussed further on the roundtable. The problem is when you look at this structure, is that you have also to consider what are the calls, what the calls are funding right now. And if you think about it, you need to understand that most opportunities in Horizon Europe are what is called top-down approaches, and they are, which means that the opportunities for funding are defined in a work program where the European Commission and with the participation of member states and other stakeholders, sorry about this, they define what they want to fund. So they have a document that is available publicly, that is called that is published every 2 years, where the opportunities are defined and where you can find or propose your solutions to the challenges that are published on the work programs. For this area of energy and climate transition, you have 6 big areas that that are detailed in that document, where you can find the opportunities to be funded. But the problem, again, when you start reading that document, is that the document is full of jargon and of concepts that they are not easy to understand. So what I would like to underline in this presentation is how would you be able to make a plan to start participating. And my first tip would be start by using the support available. You don't need to do this by yourself. There's in Portugal and in Italy, there's a similar structure. So there's all these people available to help you to make the jargon more understandable, and also to understand if your solution is exactly what is being proposed in the, is being asked, not proposed, by the European Commission. And for the the topics we are talking about here, the energy and the key emerging technologies, and also the needs of companies, you have these people here where I'm part of this team. Most of the opportunities are also imply that you build a consortium. So there, it needs to be a European wide consortium, which means that you have to have at least participants from 3 different countries. And so that's the next step, is that to find, not also most of the time you cannot do it by yourself. You need to be within a consortium. And so that would lead me to the second advice, which would be increase your network. And this is a good opportunity to start doing that. So I would even suggest you as participants, if you want to use the chat window, to start presenting yourself, and also if you're involved in building a proposal or available to start doing so, you can use the chat also to make that information available to the participants of this event. And so my first advice to build your network is to start by your friends and your close relationships, and try to understand if they are what they are planning to do in the near future, and if that includes participating in Horizon Europe, and also if they want to do it with you. For that, you need to also make your needs and your objectives, goals, and what you want to do and to get from the Horizon Europe programs clear. So you need to start introducing yourself and putting the emphasis on what you want to develop and how does that match the priorities of the European Commission. There are other ways when your close friends are too few, or they are not involved in Horizon Europe already. There are some events like these, but there are others specifically developed to increase your network. And so my advice would be also for you to participate in that event. Then the third tip would be also to plan your participation, because all of the opportunities in Horizon Europe follow a published calendar. For instance, for the opportunities in this area of energy and the decarbonization, the opportunities will close this year. Of course, there will be new opportunities next year. They will close in the end of April, but there are other opportunities also closing in September and in October. So you need also to understand what are the opportunities, and that's what the national contact points do, is to provide you with that information and to guide you through the documents you need to know. And you can also become an evaluator if you're not planning to participate right now. It's a very good way to start to get to know what makes a good proposal. And so you can start by putting your expertise to work for the Commission as an evaluator of proposals. And you just need to register at the Funding and Tenders Opportunities site. And you will be able to participate in that and get to know what the opportunities are, what makes a good proposal. So just to conclude, I would just like to tell you that sometimes it's not easy to do it, but I think to participate and be successful. But I'm sure there are people here who are willing to participate, and that's the starting point of a journey that will lead to success if you persist doing it. So if you have any questions, you can always contact us. I'll give you my contacts also in the chat window, and they will be available. They are also available on the ANI the National Innovation Agency website, both our emails and phones. So thank you very much. And I hope you enjoyed the roundtable, which is the most important part of these events. Thank you.
So hello, good morning. Good morning to you all. It's a pleasure to be here. I would like to start by thanking COTEC, the Chamber of Commerce, Portugal, Italy, and also to the Italian Embassy in Portugal, namely to Mr. Ambassador Formosa, and also Jorge Portugal, who is the general manager of COTEC here in Portugal. So thank you for the invitation. My name is Miguel Martins, and the hat I'm wearing today is Sustainable Investments Manager or Partner at Grosvenor House of Investments. We are a boutique investment house in Portugal that focuses exclusively in sustainability. And the funds that we run all have the ESG certification. But this is not about me today. So I would just like to share with you three big topics. As I was doing the research for this panel, I would like to share with you three big topics that basically will frame the discussion later on today. So we have heard about the European Green Deal already this morning. But just to summarize, it aspires to put the EU on a trajectory towards carbon neutrality by 2050. And there are a number of major milestones that have already been set to be achieved by 2030 related to emissions reductions and decarbonization. While compliance and risk management is very important, we should not lose sight that there's a huge economic opportunity out there. Of course, but there's also a huge economic opportunity, and we should not miss the potential for smart, green, and climate resilient investment-led growth, which ultimately should be decoupled from resources use. Lastly, such investments are key and will boost job creation and will improve living standards. Because as the European Green Deal also states, no person and no place should be left behind. So with this summary of what will frame our discussion going forward in this panel, I would like to introduce to you our three esteemed guests. I'll start with ENERSEM. We have Noemi Barrea, and she is a mathematical engineer and researcher at ENERSEM, which is, as you know, a spin-off of Polytechnic de Milano. We also have Matteo Zanchi, and he's the founding partner and managing director of ENERSEM. And then on the Portuguese side, we have Marco Ferraz. He is the head of production and operations innovation center at Galp, but also the chairman of the CoLab Net for CO2. All right, so welcome. Thank you for joining us here today. And I know that both of you have very short presentations, so I would start, if you agree, with ENERSEM and your presentation, and then it will be followed by Marco's presentation, and then we'll open the floor to Q&A, both from me, but also from the audience, hopefully. Marco, the floor is yours.
Perhaps Matteo from ENERSEM. Nice to have all you in this panel. We have a very, very short presentation. We we have two slides actually that Noemi, I don't know if you will share or perhaps we can share. Okay, Noemi, share. Thank you, Noemi. Actually, we are here representing also other partner of this project, LombHe. We have been called for in this panel mainly for this. Then we will talk also about other things. We have two slides, as I said. One is on this project. Is a project financed by Regione Lombardia in Italy. And the aim actually is to identify heating solution with a low impact on the environment and also on the air quality for the heating in cities. We are one of the partners. There are two big players. One is Gouveia Calori Servizi, that is the utility provider for energy heat with the district heating in several cities, among them Milano. Ariston Thermo, that is industrial partner who is developing in this project efficiency project on electric heat pumps and also on gas absorption heat pumps. And then Polytechnic di Milano, represented by Fondazione and us. In this project, we are working actually on the modeling part of this process of decarbonization of the heating for our cities. Heating is one of the main sources of impact in the use of energy. But ENERSEM is actually doing much more. We are working in civil sector, but also in industrial sector. We are an innovative company dealing with models. Then Noemi will talk something about this. We are, most of us are engineers from the energy domain and the modeling and mathematical domain. We work with industrial clients with the aim of reducing their energy consumption and their carbon footprint, both with a project on energy saving and renewable deployment on their sites. So this is the brief presentation. I would leave the stage to my colleague of the Portuguese company.
Thank you, Matteo. I will share then my screen. Good afternoon or good morning, everyone, still. And in the name of Galp, I would like to, first of all, thank the invitation for being here. It's really good on our side to be present. Let me just share. If you bear with me just for a second. It's a very quick presentation, and just to use as a teaser for this session, a topic that it's extremely interesting, extremely relevant to any energy company today, that it's decarbonization and energy transition, and of course all the emerging technologies that can lead to this. Of course, this comes with key assumptions, and there's a path to transition. We usually say it's a transition, it's not a leap, because today our economy depends strongly on what we call the fossil fuels. Nevertheless, we do think at Galp that the best way to leap for a good transition, it's always to improve what we have today. So first of all, optimize the production that we have today, optimize the efficiency in our operations. Why? Because this allows us to make more from what we already have, and that has a significant impact on sustainability. As you may know, energy transitions take a lot of time. We can see here some of the good examples, from the coal to the crude oil. Usually it takes up to 40 years to have a good transition. I have the hope that at this stage it won't take that long, but still it's something that we need to address. We need to go in baby steps and address each one of the technologies that we have present. The path itself it's made, of course, with what we know today, and the renewable business is something that the energy market is moving towards. But still, we can see that today about 20% of the energy consumption is regarding renewable. So we need to continue making this path. And of course, there's something really interesting to address, that it's a new energy mix. We all have talked about not only renewables, but also regarding hydrogen, the matter of synthetic fuels, energy storage itself. All of this needs a significant improvement in technology to make this efficient, for an efficient transition as well. On top of that, CO2 management. CO2 management is something that today CO2 is seen as a liability to most of the projects that we have, but it can be turned into a feedstock, for instance, for synthetic fuels, or it can be managed in a way that we can have a permanent storage as well. So it's going to be key also in the path of this transition. Like we said, and Miguel just mentioned that prior to this, that there is a path, there is a period. By 2030, the goals are already settled. Most of the companies have decarbonization goals until 2030. Some of them until 2050. But still, there is social pressure, of course, and it's good. We see it as a good thing. And regulation, it's moving towards. We have talked about this today, and it's key for the companies itself, especially the energy companies as well, the technology companies, to address this subject, and also to have a decarbonization ambition with the main energy players. I just placed here two main challenges that we identify here at Galp. One challenge is, of course, the geographic challenges. A good example is electric mobility is getting pace in Europe, while if we go to South America, we see that it's rather difficult due to infrastructures, but as well because, for instance, in Brazil, alcohol or ethanol is a good solution, and also sustainable solution for mobility. On the other hand, the technical challenges, and two examples here that we face often here, especially at Galp, the industrial electrification can be something to address, but there are industries, and we talk about ourselves as well, especially with the refining, that it's hard to abate. Let's imagine furnaces reaching 1000 degrees Celsius. It's rather difficult for us to address this with electrification. So there is a technology development to address on that. Finally, we do believe in innovative collaboration. Two key examples, the collaborative laboratories. We are participating in two of them. iSuccess, that allow us, in the case of biorefs, to look at biofuels, and biofuels as an option to the future. Net for CO2, CO2 management, CO2 to store, and CO2 to produce synthetic fuels as well. And of course, CoLab works with us regarding hydrogen and hydrogen development. And that's it on my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marco. Thank you, Matteo. So what I would like to do now was to move into the Q&A portion of our panel. I basically have two different types of questions for the three of you. The first one are more generic questions, and the way I framed them was along the lines of a SWOT analysis matrix. And then the second one will allow the three of you to go more into deep dives of the strategies and the particular pilots that you are spearheading. And you know, over the weekend, I was doing some broad research to allow me to frame the conversation today. And I came across a text from Ellen Thompson, and she's a professor of political economy at Cambridge University. And again, this was March 21st when she penned this article. And I was surprised to hear, because it was so relevant for what we're feeling today. I was surprised to read, not surprised, but you know, when I read her, she was mentioning that this path of transition away from fossil fuels into more sustainable energy is something that has the potential and will reshape geopolitics around the world. And this is something that we're all feeling right now with what's happening in Europe and spreading into the entire world. So having that in mind, what I would like to ask the three of you, and maybe I would start with you, Marco, is what is Portugal's, in your opinion, what is Portugal's competitive position in what comes to decarbonization and energy transition on one side, and what the other side, on the other side, what are the current weaknesses that you see, and how can we improve our competitive position when it comes to energy transition and decarbonization?
Okay, thank you, Miguel. For me to start, I do think, honestly, that Portugal has some competitive advantages. Of course, the geography itself, our geographic position, it's something that addresses this. Unfortunately, today, we know that we have a war in Europe, and the energy panorama is changing as well. And for instance, the case of transporting energy to Europe can be something that Portugal can address that through Sines, etc. Because we have the infrastructures, we have the capability, and of course, we would need further investment to do that. But that's a competitive advantage. Also, our back history that allow us to have very good relations with some of the countries that we develop. Today, we know that Mozambique, for instance, has a significant amount of gas reserves, which is key for the energy transition. We're talking about a type of fuel with reduced or further reduced emissions, and this is, of course, key. And then, on the other hand, the good relations, for instance, that we have with countries like Brazil, that allow us to work with the country that it's one of the key technology enablers in the world, and is working not only on solutions that we have for decarbonization, but also on low carbon solutions, etc. Apart from being a big energy player. So I would say most of all our geographic position, and of course the possibility and the good relations that we have with these countries as well. On the other hand, the challenges that we see is that it can be limited in some cases from a technological or a technical point of view to address some of the challenges itself, right? For instance, we do today, we talk a lot about CO2 management, something that we can address, but if we talk about CO2 storage, we do not have the typical industry today in Portugal. What we call the brownfields. One of the key examples that we have been addressing internally is, for instance, carbon storage. A lot of people talks about carbon storage, and traditionally in Iberia, not only in Portugal, but Portugal and Spain, this doesn't happen. Why? Because in opposition to the Northern Europe, where we have a good development of oil and gas fields that today are depleted and can be reused to this kind of decarbonization technology, we lack that competitive advantage because we were not in the game, meaning that we just need to run the extra mile in order to address that, or through collaborative agreements, it's always an option, because we do see that this is a global subject with local solutions, and those local solutions are really necessary.
Thank you, Marco. Very thankful to you for two reasons. The first one is that for your answer and for explaining your point of view and Portugal's position, but also because we don't have a lot of time for questions, and you already in some way answered part of my second question. So I'm really thankful for that, because we're saving time on this. So I would like to ask the same question to Matteo and Noemi in terms of when it comes to Italy. If you could tell us, competitive positions, how can the positioning of Italy improve in this field, and also advantages and market failures that you see and you can share with us?
Yeah, actually, I will share my personal perspective as a player in this field. I have not let's say the perspective of the entire market, but I think that at least two things to me are very, very clear. One is on the weaknesses. The main weaknesses in Italy, I think, now for to accelerate this process of decarbonization is related to bureaucracy and the authorization. I read some days ago a statement of one of the association of renewable investors and producers in Italy. They say that they have around more than 60 gigawatts of renewables that could be installed, ready to be installed as a capacity in Italy, but they now are still blocked by the authorization process. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't look very precisely when we authorize this kind of plan, but it's clear that we are facing such big problems in the world, climate change, what we are seeing now on the energy market, that we should change and accelerate. So this is the main weakness I see. As the strength, I would say two aspects. One is the capacity of the research and innovation sector in Italy. I think that we have very good and brilliant people working on this. We see also when we, as Italian researchers, go abroad, we perhaps it's difficult to do research in Italy because lack of funds and other, but I think there are very, very important capacity on this. And the other is the as an industrial manufacturer system capacity. Also, the know-how of the industrial system in Italy on how to manufacture components. So I would, let's say, synthesize in a word that is quality of people and know-how. This is my answer, I would say.
Noemi, I'm not sure if you want to add, but Matteo, I hear you loud and clear on how you closed your answer, because the European Green Deal is not just about climate and energy. It's also about the social angle of leaving no region and no person behind. And what you're saying, it's critical because it's linked to job creation. It's linked to new competencies that we need to that we need to put on our workforce. So totally on point there. Thank you for that. Noemi, anything to add?
We are on the same page. I think Matteo said everything we were talking about.
She is the researcher, not
That's perfect. Thank you so much. So going now into the more specific and more in-depth questions related to both your organizations and the case studies, I'll go back to Marco. I mean, when we look into sustainability, and this is not, sometimes there's a perception to think when we talk about sustainability to think about energy and the energy crisis, but we know that sustainability is broader than that. But one of the things that I've been seeing over the 20 years that I've been working in sustainability is that most of the solutions to the problems that we have normally tend to have a technological component attached to it. So technology, namely digital technology, is going to be critical and center stage when we talk about decarbonization and energy transition. So you alluded to technology as well, but can you give us a little bit more detail how you see that come about and how you see it in your current roles?
Yeah. No, it's a very good question, Miguel, because it's all about, and I'm a strong believer, this is a personal opinion, okay, on this optimization path as the first step to sustainability, right? You try to use the most or what you can from what you have. And here digital plays a critical role. And I'm going to step back and give, of course, an example in the energy market. But for instance, in oil production, not long ago, a big oil and gas player said 70% of the data that they had to work on their production, on what we today use as energy in the world, was not used. 70% was just somehow not used. And that's something to address. So we get back to data management, etc. But in the end of the day, this took part in the type of digital solutions that developed through there, especially when artificial intelligence stepped in and worked a lot significantly in the past 10 years in the energy industry. And then we did see that knowledge transfer and that technology transfer to happen from the fossil industry itself to today a more sustainable energy industry, and we see that being used on renewable industry, etc. Attached to this path, there is always a technological component, and that technological component, and today Cristina talked about that, it's something that we need to address in a holistic way to define a roadmap. And that roadmap means that we do have to work on solutions from pure R&D with low TRLs to those solutions that will come to the market in a couple of years. And this needs to work on loop in order to having a roadmap in 10 years that actually creates a sustainable way of producing energy, or a sustainable way of making our business again.
Thank you, Marco. So there's another component of technology that is less talked about. Some people say that it's less talked about because it's very technical and it's less sexy when we talk about technology, but it's critical, right? Without it, we wouldn't be able to have the technology that is more visible and that we know we use on a daily basis, which has to do with analytics. It has to do with algorithm development. And of course, it links into artificial intelligence. It links into augmented reality. So this question would be for Noemi and Matteo. How can analytics and algorithm development play a role in energy transition? And what do you think are the limitations as well as the potentials of following this approach?
Well, I'll take this as a mathematical engineer in a world of energy engineers. Well, as we all know, these kind of tools are becoming very important in basically all domains, and this holds also for energy transition. I think it is because they allow us to learn from the past and use this kind of information to deal with the future in a more effective way. That is exactly what we have to do right now. I would say that the main potential of these tools is their adaptability. They can be used to lots of problems, even when they are very different from each other's. And in the case of LombHe that Matteo was citing just before, we've gone through predictive maintenance in district heating to predicting heat requests in apartments. And I think this is possible, above all, when you put together the knowledge of the tools, like it's in my case, but above all, the knowledge of the problems. Because these kind of tools become basically theoretical when you don't have a full understanding of the problem, a full interpretation of the solution, and also an estimation of the validity of the solution itself and how useful it can be. So I would say that's a potential, but also limitation. And then obviously there is data, because we need lots of data and good data. And it's still particularly hard to find good and a certain amount of data, to find it in the reality and not just in research and in a theoretical field. So there is room for improvement.
Thank you so much, Noemi. I'll actually continue with you and Matteo. My next question would be, and I already alluded to that when we talk climate change, we're not talking about energy only. So what is ENERSEM doing in terms of, or in the field of ecological transition linked to energy?
Yes, I would answer this. Actually, as you said, while you are reducing energy consumption, you are reducing also CO2 emission, for example. And so I would say, sticking on this environmental indicator CO2, we are increasingly be asked for by our client to tackle also this issue of decarbonize their process, or to help our clients to reduce the carbon footprint of their products. And it's very interesting that this is spanning from food products. We are working with some of the big famous products of the like Grana Padano, for example, up to the automotive industry, where I see that most of the clients of these clients are asking for reducing the carbon footprint of their processes. So, and this is also have to do with consultancy, for example, in change of technology. Marco was telling us of the necessity to improve technology, for example, to produce high temperature heat. If we want to avoid gas consumption and go for the electrification, we have to, for sure, to improve the technology, for example, of high temperature heat pumps to produce steam, medium and high pressure steam with the heat pumps, electric heat pumps, instead of burning gas. So actually, I have seen in the last 2-3 years that more clients are asking, perhaps not as an immediate ready to go technology change, but they are asking us to advise them on how, on the medium term, they can do this technology shift. So yes, it's this is our approach to this issue.
Thank you, Matteo. I'll now move on to Marco with a little bit of a different question, but staying with ecosystems and ecosystem preservation. We are also facing a food and a water crisis, and a lot of this has to do not just with access to water and declining yields, but also with the entire conversation around food and water security. I mean, I was in the US when the state decided to start producing biofuels out of corn, which led to what became known as the tortilla crisis, because a lot of the corn that was going to be exported to Mexico as food was being used in the US as fuel. So can energy transition be seen as a force for good when addressing the food and water challenges? I mean, you mentioned 2 great examples close to my heart from emerging markets in Brazil and Mozambique. And it's the emerging markets that, I mean, we are going to feel the effects of climate change, but more perverse effects of climate change will be felt in emerging markets. So how do you see energy transition being a force for good in with these 2 other crises?
That's a great question, Miguel. It's we need to be careful on that path, definitely. And biofuels, for instance, is a good example. Using food crops to produce fuels, it's something that it's done. It can be done in the future. But we go back to Malthus' trap, and when he said back in the days that we would have too much population in the world to have enough food. And I invite you all to search for this on Google. And if we start producing fuel from food, and this is the basic maths on that, we will increase that problem as well, because in the end of the day, we'll need food for obvious reasons, of course. We will need water for obvious reasons as well. And I'm a geologist by background, but all the water in the world cannot be enough in the recent years. So we need to be very careful with that, meaning that there are ways and technological ways to further develop this without using what is the feedstock to all of us. It's a feedstock for biofuel, but it needs to avoid the maximum to extract resources for something that it's a basic good for the consumption of the globe. So we do really need to address this energy transition, being very careful with these solutions, because in the end of the day, we don't want to make the bad things and not the good things in the end, right?
That's a powerful statement. With you 120%. So as I knew it was going to happen, we're running out of time. This is a very interesting but also complicated issue, and we didn't have a lot of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bundle two questions that I had in mind to the three of you, and I'll let you go in the order that you prefer. So one of them is with regards to stakeholder engagement, and where do you most see the pressure coming from on one side? And the second bit of the question would be if you could share with us your forward look and your final message when it comes to decarbonization and energy transition. And I'll let you go at your own pace, and you know, just whomever wants.
I can start if you want. I was already having the word. Okay, so the pressure, I do think now the pressure comes, it's social pressure. It comes from the people, it comes from everyone. Everyone wants to address climate change, everyone wants to address decarbonization, and we do see that concern. We, Galp, as energy providers, we do see that concern on our clients, on the people that we talk, on the solutions that we often propose. And it's key to us. We would say that the main stakeholder is definitely the public, the population. And in the end of the day, all the energy that we make, all the solutions that we create, it's for them. So they are the first ones that needs to be addressed. And we are vehicles not only of a service often, but also of the solutions that we can bring. That's something really relevant. On the forward look, I do think, and again, it's a personal opinion, decarbonization needs to be looked with an open mind. And that this is something that we address to everyone that I know. We need to look at a significant amount of solutions that come not only from the upstream side, saying what type of energy are we going to produce to reduce our emissions, but also what other solutions can we take from the market that we have today. In the end of the day, we have a growing population, a growing energy demand, and no one of us wants to turn off the light during the night. So we need to work together in collaboration in order to reach the goal. And I'm very optimistic. I do think by 2050, we'll get to carbon zero or carbon negative. And on our side, we'll be doing our part for sure.
Thank you, Marco. Noemi and Matteo,
That's
your thoughts?
On the point on the stakeholders, I agree with Marco. So consumers, clients, people around is getting increasingly on the edge this issue of climate change and the decarbonization. On the future, just one word, and also Noemi, I'd like to listen to her, is we don't have just one card in our hands. We have more cards, and we should play with all of them. So energy efficiency, renewables, and we should, I feel personally, as a cold shower, what is happening in these days. We should leave everything out and go, but very, very fast. We can't wait anymore. We can't wait for several issues. One is what we are now seeing. Then there is climate change that is real and is happening. So we should change the speed and use whatever we have with intelligence, with our skills, but don't have one solution. We have several, and we should play with them. I think that is important.
And
Thanks, Matteo. Let's put the foot on the pedal and accelerate the pace of change. Noemi.
Yeah, I think I'll go with a very biased take-home message about collecting data and like quality over quantity. And it's really connected to what they said. Data are our memory, and the better care we take of our memory, the better understanding we have of what's going on, and the better adaptability we have to the situation around us. So that's it.
Thank you, Noemi. I actually, may I just ask a very quick question there? Because we've been talking a lot about data. Data is critical. And data is critical, not just because of the data, but because it allows us to go into that journey from data to information, to knowledge, and eventually to wisdom. There's a lot of conversation around the impact that blockchain might have. How do you see that connection between blockchain and data?
Well, it's related. It's the moment in which we kind of hide the data behind, which the knowledge becomes knowledge of just a few people and not of the entire process. So it's a very sensible matter, and it's the use of data we actually make that it's important.
Well, Noemi, I think you just opened the door to a second roundtable to talk about the importance of keeping information democratic and not hide it behind any barrier. So with that, unfortunately, we have dark skies in the horizon. But one of the things that I've collected from the discussion today is that we're all keeping an optimistic spirit. As I would like to, I always like to say in situations like this, is that it is too late to be a pessimist. So I thank you, Noemi, Matteo, Marco, thank you so much for your time. Thank you to the organizing institutions for allowing us to have this conversation. It was a pleasure to be here. And I would like actually to go back to something Cristina said when she closed her presentation, which was, yes, we can. So, let's put the foot on the pedal. Let's do this at the greatest speed we can without running any unnecessary risks. And let's do it on multiple fronts, because it's not just one of them. So thank you for your time. Let's keep being optimistic, and let's work on making the future a better place than it is currently. Thank you so much to you all. Thank you to the organization, and look forward to seeing you sometime soon.